What is up, guys? You're listening to the MFCEO Project. I'm Andy. I'm your host, and I am the motherfucking CEO. Guys, if this is your first time listening, welcome. This is a podcast for personal development. This is the podcast that you're going to listen to, and it's going to punch you right in the fucking throat and make you realize that most of the time you're being a total pussy. Okay? It's not just for being a CEO. It's not just for being a business owner. It's not just for entrepreneurs. It's about being the CEO of you. Okay? Because that's what we all are at the end of the day. And you know what's better than being the CEO of you is being the motherfucking CEO of you, where you go through life kicking ass, having a good time, full of confidence, and basically making everyone around you better at the same time. As always, guys, I'm here with my co-host, Vaughn Kohler, a.k.a. Vaughn the Impaler, the pastor of disaster. What's up, my man?
I'm doing great, man. It's a beautiful day in St. Louis.
You know what? It is beautiful today.
It is.
We woke up, it was raining.
Yeah.
And my cars were supposed to get detailed today, and I was like, fuck, because that's a big deal for me, man. My car's got to look fresh.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like your head. Like your head's always looking shiny and fresh.
Yeah.
I want my cars to look that fresh.
I like to keep it shiny and fresh.
Yeah, it looks good, bro. Your head is the inspiration for the paint on my cars.
That's, I know. I'm not sure what to say about that.
Yeah, you should. It's a compliment.
Yeah.
So,
hey, can I share something with you that
you can always share something with me,
Okay, well, it has to do with your impact on my life.
Okay.
So if you accuse me of
ass kissing?
Yeah, ass kissing,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, see, I said, I just used the word ass. So I'm going to get all this
Yeah,
hate,
the pastor said
no,
ass.
No, but I realized, what I realized, and this is pretty huge for me, I realized that for most of my life, well, really for all of my life, I've been a pretty talented guy. Like I have some pretty
There's
big
nothing
gifts.
like humility, is there, Tyler?
Yeah. But, and this is where it's going, I realize how much of a liability and a disservice that my talent has been, because it's only been the last 2 years that I realized, working with you, I'm like, talent really doesn't get you anywhere. Hard work gets you places.
You want to know my criticism?
Discipline gets you places.
My criticism to you is this.
What's that?
I will agree. You're extremely talented.
Yeah.
My criticism to you is that you don't always let people see how talented you are, and you hide a little bit.
But I'm the co-host.
It's okay. But I like the fact that I saw you getting photos taken yesterday, and I see you working on your personal shit. That makes me feel good, because I see you coming out of your shell and saying, all right, look, I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to let people know it.
No, I appreciate
That's what this is about.
But man,
you know?
I mean, I've been getting up, and I'm not bragging. I'm literally like telling you thank you on the, and I know I didn't, but I'm getting up and
I can pull my pants straight down, like bend over if you want to kiss it. I'm just saying. Like,
no, but there's a rush now that I'm getting at 4:30 in the morning. I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, man. It
feels
good to be you.
It feels good.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I'm trading in my Versa any minute now.
There you go. You're trading in the Vaginamobile.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
guys, first of all, that is exactly what this podcast is about. And that's super cool to hear, especially from you.
Yeah.
And you guys don't realize how hard Vaughn works. And Tyler, by the way, just so everybody knows, MC Salmon is wearing his salmon shorts today.
Yeah.
I got tired of hearing you bitching, dude.
Yeah. So MC Salmon is in the house, fully dressed with his shorts. And that means, as you guys know, that we're going to have a killer podcast. Right. And I have no fucking doubt about that, because we have a super special guest today on the podcast. His name is Mike Dillard. He's an entrepreneur. He's an ass kicker. He's a car guy. He's also the host of the Self-Made Man podcast, which I've been on. It is an amazing podcast. If you guys aren't subscribing to that podcast, you need to. Welcome, my brother. How you doing?
Oh, thank you, man. It's a bit surreal being here in the office after listening to you for a year now, and Vaughn kicking ass. So this is fucking awesome, man.
Yeah, dude. We just recorded this morning an episode for his series. Why don't you tell everybody about like what you do with the podcast and your video series and everything?
Much like MFCEO, it started about 1.5 years ago as a passion project. The goal was basically to provide leaders and mentorship to young men specifically out there, because as I've looked at the world over the last, I'd say 10 years, in particular, I don't know about you guys. I've seen a massive degradation in the values of, American society from the top down, from Washington to companies who are lying, stealing, and et cetera. And it appears to me that what's being taught to young individuals in high school and college is that get whatever is yours by any means possible, whether there's honesty and integrity behind it or not.
Right.
And that's not a world I want to live in.
No.
And
it's a short-term look at the whole big picture.
Right. It's the exact opposite of what this nation was founded upon and why we've been successful. And so, I asked myself, okay, what can I do to possibly have an impact on that? And if you look back in history, you're basically asking a question of, well, how do you change a society? And there's two options. There's with the barrel of a gun, or there's by impacting the value system of the next generation.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so that was the goal. I was like, you know what? I can do a podcast. I can do it for free. It can be disseminated all over the world, and we can put role models back in front of the next generation that will put us back on track.
Yeah.
So that was the inspiration and why we started a year and a half ago.
Yeah, very, very similar. If you guys like this podcast, you will love his podcast as well. It's a very, very good, rich content. A little more refined than I would say I am, but that's okay. Everybody's got their own style.
Right. And people who get what you just said get 100% why Andy wrote a children's book.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
They understand that that's the long game.
Are you plugging the children's book right now? That was a good effort.
Well, yeah.
That was like a good seamless effort.
Yeah. So otisandcharlie.com.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
So,
EY. Charlie EY.
So Mike is also very much into making a difference. It's not, like we talk about on the last episode with Gerard, being an entrepreneur is so little about the money. It just so happens that when you make a big impact and you make, people's lives better and you improve the situation at hand, money comes with those things. And that's why Mike has been a very successful entrepreneur. He's been in the info space, publisher, copywriter, very successful guy. Very jealous of his brand new car. He just got a brand new Ferrari 48 Spider. And I'm not even a Ferrari guy, and the thing gives me a little eggplant, if you know what I'm saying. All right. Everybody knows what that means. But so tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
Sure. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur in high school because I used to mountain bike race professionally, and I'd wait tables at the original Macaroni Grill in Boerne, Texas during my
That's the original,
weekends.
huh?
Yeah.
Oh,
before
cool.
it was, a chain and bought out by Brinker. And so the food was actually good back then. But
I just like the table wine, man. They bring out the table wine. It's
Yeah.
total shit wine, but man, I get drunk on it.
It was a riot. You'd get a 2.5 hour wait with
Yeah.
people having free jugs of wine in front of them for 2.5 hours. It was a party.
Yeah.
So I would train during the week and wait tables and bus tables on the weekends while my friends were out partying. Maybe I'd have, an event that I'd want to go to, and I'd get slammed with a double, from my manager. And I'm like, fuck, I can't believe that I'm giving somebody else control over my schedule and my time and my life. And that basically planted the seed that I was not going to let that happen, as I got older. So that began my venture into entrepreneurship. I'd come home at 1 o'clock smelling like food and sweating after 12 hours running on the floor. And what do you do when you turn on the television at midnight? 1 o'clock, you see infomercials,
Right.
for Tony Robbins and Carlton Sheets and all these guys. So here I was,
Carlton
exhausted.
Sheets. Dude, I haven't heard that name in 20 fucking
Nobody's
years.
gonna know who that is except you and I, because we grew up with that shit.
Dude.
Right? Yeah.
Holy shit, that just brought back a flash of memories.
I think he's
dude.
probably the guy
Hey,
I
do you
picture
remember-
in my mind. But
Do you
I'm not
remember
sure who
Brad
it is.
Richdale?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Nobody remembers that motherfucker.
I bought his product.
I did too.
Yeah.
That's how I seriously, no bullshit. I'm probably like one of the only guys ever that actually bought his shit and learned something and made a bunch of money from it.
I did it. I wrote
His program was good, dude.
Yeah, I wrote my first thing in college based on his course. So that's what
hilarious.
got me down this track. And then after that, my businesses have always been inspired by my own personal problems or challenges. And so I am an introvert. I was extremely, extremely shy growing up in high school, even in college. And if you want to start a business, you learn very quickly that you're going to have to freaking sell something. Mm-hmm. And talking to an introvert who doesn't like to talk to people, that's a nightmare.
That's right.
So I spent several years doing everything I could to try and figure out how to sell. No matter what I did, I hated every second of it. and I discovered Dan Kennedy years ago in my 20s, who had, basically written about the concept of attraction marketing and using direct response. And what I realized from that is, you know what? I can actually write a letter or put up a website with a letter and sell something without actually having to talk to someone. And that changed my life. I went from waiting tables at a PF Chang's in my mid-20s by that point to learning how to write copy. Spent 18 months mastering that skill set, wrote a letter, selling an ebook that I had written for a previous skill set, and essentially sold that for $39 a copy. I had it printed at Kinko's every week. I'd go down and have a 200 or 300 spiral bound books printed for 300, about $3 a piece. I'd sell them for $39 online with a little letter that I wrote. I bought some traffic on Google AdWords, and within a couple of months, I was selling $40,000 to $60,000 a month of that book.
Wow. What year was that?
2007.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So that's when I realized a couple of things. First and foremost, if you understand your personality type and you accept that, the sooner that you start to learn skills that are aligned with your methodology or the way your brain is wired, the better, instead of fighting against it. The moment I did that is everything started going really quickly. So
that's an important thing to note, man. Trying to stick a square peg in a round hole, it's just, you can make it work. You know what I mean? But there's always a way there, especially in entrepreneurship. I do believe there's always a way for all personality types to be successful, because I've seen entrepreneurship it's people who are like aspiring entrepreneurs think they have, like, they watch somebody like me, or they watch somebody like, let's say, Tony Robbins, or they watch these dudes and they think you got to have this crazy, like, energetic, in your face, like, charismatic personality. You fucking don't. Right. In fact, a lot of times my personality hurts me because of the way I react and the way I communicate. So, to you guys listening who think that you're missing something by not having that, that's actually a lot of times the opposite. Yeah. Because I can give you a million examples where me being the way that I am with people has hurt me rather than helped me.
Well, if you forced me to build a business based on what Gary Vaynerchuk does every day,
right,
I would fail,
right,
miserably.
Yeah.
And I could do it, but I would suck at it, and I would be miserable.
You'd be personally miserable. Right?
Yeah, I'd be done in a couple of weeks.
Right.
So coming to that conclusion and really realizing how I was, meant to pursue business was huge. And, a great place to start for that is your Myers-Briggs. Figuring out what personality type you have, your Colby test, your Strengths Finder 2.0.
Yeah. Just
figuring out how you were freaking wired,
right,
is the first thing you need to do.
Yeah, trying to develop some real self-awareness on the spot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, man. I think, a lot of people go their whole lives without ever, like, trying to figure out what they're meant to do, right? Like, it's like the example of basketball. Like, the dude's 5'8", 180 pounds, and he thinks, he's trying to be Michael Jordan. It's like, bro,
right,
it wasn't fucking meant for you, Like,
and that's okay.
Yeah, right.
That
is okay.
Figure your shit out. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly, man. It's just such a, and I feel like, with entrepreneurship now, you have so many guys out there that are of similar types. They're good salespeople. They're vocal. They're charismatic. They know how to speak to people. That everybody out there that thinks if they don't have that they're not going to be able to be successful. Dude, I know so many more entrepreneurs that aren't that way that are far, far more successful than I am.
Yeah, you just don't see them.
Yeah,
they're
right.
not. They're not
right.
on
It's
Instagram.
not their thing.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So if you're listening and that's you're not missing anything. Right. I think that's a big. I get a lot of emails from people that say things like that. They're like, how do you do that? It's like, bro, I'm just working with what I have, and that's a huge deal.
So with that project, was that the first time in your life that you made real money? I guess it sounds like it was.
Oh, yeah. I mean, literally, I was waiting tables at a P.F. Chang's living in my parents' house.
Right.
And I had a corporate job in Dallas recruiting surgeons. And I think that's a really important part of my story, actually, is after 4 or 5 years of utter failure, I moved to Dallas, got a job in corporate America with one single intention, which was to get a job that would provide me with a skill set that I could apply to my business. So I never once stopped working on the business or thinking about it, but I realized what my stopping points were, what my blocks were, and it was selling and being timid. And so I was like, all right, if I've got to get a job, I'm going to freaking learn something from this job, and it's going to have a meaningful impact on my business goals. So how do you get over fear, of the phone? You get a job recruiting surgeons that, they sit you down in a desk that's completely empty, drop a 5-inch binder in front of you that has 10,000 doctors' offices' phone numbers and say, start dialing 300 calls a day.
Yeah.
My phone fear was gone within 24 hours.
Yeah. So I always like to jump in and point out the points, but like, dude, the best way to get over a fear is to fucking go right at it, man.
Right.
And like, just because something isn't made for you doesn't mean you can't develop a tremendous skill for it. And dude, I think that's a big thing that holds people back, right? They see something they have to do. They're like, I could never do that, so they never try.
Right.
What was interesting, I don't remember where I read it. It might have been Tony Robbins or somewhere, but I read somewhere that there are a lot of things that you won't be willing to do for yourself that you'd be willing to do for someone else, like a boss.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let's give that a shot. And sure enough, I wasn't willing to do this for myself for 5 years, but you sit me down with, someone who has expectations for what I need to do that day. And I did it.
Right.
And I did that for about a year, and I was like, okay, well, what's my next fear? And the next one was selling in person. So quit that job, got another one for a startup in downtown Dallas in outside sales in the telecom industry. And the goal was, here's your territory. You go into this high rise and you go to the top floor, you sneak past security and you knock on doors until you get kicked out. And you're trying to sell the service. And you talk about the worst, scariest thing on the planet for someone like me at the time. That was hugely terrifying.
Yeah.
I lasted, I think, 2 weeks, but sure enough, I did it. I figured out how to sneak past the guard. I'd essentially put my cell phone up to my ear and pretend I was on a very important phone call, not make eye contact with the security desk, go straight to the elevator. And I'd make it like 5 or 6 doors before they caught on, but mission accomplished.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
It is awesome.
And another thing too, like that I hear him saying also is like, for you guys that have a job right now and it's not your end goal, this is another area where people fuck up constantly. This isn't what I want to do, so I don't fucking apply myself. Well, first of all, you can learn to be great at a lot of different things by just being great at your job you're at now.
Right.
And not only that, you develop the habits of working hard and the habits of focusing and the habits of trying to be the best. Those are all habits. They're not character traits. And so whatever your job is right now, you notice that Mike said, if I'm going to have a job, I'm going to learn something. Dude, take that mentality with what you're doing now, because you will always carry that with you. Nobody wants to, well, most people don't want to fucking shuffle fries, but you know what? If you're going to shuffle fries, make some good fucking fries.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's a great thing to hear that. I think people need to hear that.
Yeah, and biggest opportunity for someone in their 20s, get a job in the industry that you love, that you want to get involved in, and just learn.
Right.
Whenever I valet one of my cars, right, in Austin, there's these young guys who've been valeting my cars wherever I go for years downtown. They, change locations or whatever. And they're in their 20s. They're smart. They've got a good attitude. And I still see them 3 years in. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are you doing? You're not learning anything from this job. Go somewhere else and do anything that's in line with something bigger, that you have in store for yourself.
Right. For sure, man.
So I want to state the obvious, but what I see in you, Mike, is that what is true of pretty much every successful person, entrepreneur or otherwise. It's not, you don't come to the table with all these assets necessarily, although I'm sure you have them, but you come with a disposition that says, all right, well, I'm going to do what I need to do to learn, and I'm going to do what I need to do to add some ingenuity to what I'm, to my plans for life, And so I feel like that's something that people need to realize again and again, is that, it really isn't about talent, like we were saying earlier. It isn't about having all these natural assets. It's about having the disposition that says, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to learn stuff. I'm going to develop myself no matter what I have to do.
Yeah. If you have a goal in mind and you know where you want to end up, you simply figure out what you need to do to get there and you just go get it done. I just don't know how any other way to operate.
Right. But dude, so many people still, they use that as a like, there's so many people listening right now that are saying, well, I need a website, but I don't know how to build a website. Well, fucking Google the motherfucking shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, oh, I need to learn how to sell, but I don't know how to sell. Well, go try to sell and fucking learn as you go. Like, that's what entrepreneurship is. It is not a set path. Like, nobody grows up with a fucking production team and a graphics department and a all this other shit that people have. Like,
We don't even have that yet.
no, no, I got a fucking iPhone and I got MC Salmon.
That's right.
I mean, fuck.
Let's be honest, Andy. I think if someone's asking those questions or making comments like that,
Yeah.
they're really not
don't
cut
have
out
it.
to be an
No,
entrepreneur.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
Those are not questions that come
No,
up with
but
you.
entrepreneur is the new rapper. It's the new cool thing.
Sure.
It's the thing that everybody wants to be now. So everybody thinks that if they don't have a job and they have an idea of a business, that there's some sort, they could put entrepreneur in their fucking profile and they're an entrepreneur. Like, dude, no. Entrepreneurs take an idea and they figure out how to make it fucking happen. And that's that. Like, dude.
Professional problem solvers.
Yeah, 100% all the time. Dude, that's funny. We were talking about this on your show earlier. Like, that's exactly what it is. Like, people will write in and they'll say, well, I'm having this issue with this, or I'm having this issue with that, and I'm having this issue with my team. And I'm like, they're like, is this normal? Like,
And?
I'm like, yeah, dude, that's what you do. Like, your job is to fucking make those things go together. Like, it's just, that's what it is. And, so many people feel like they look at guys who are successful and they say, that guy's got it all figured out. No, I don't have it all figured out. You don't have it all figured out. Well, fucking, dude, the conversations you and I were just having off camera and off microphone about your brand and my brand, like, dude, we're still learning from each other and we're talking and like, this is not, you cannot look at somebody and pretend that, like, because they're at a certain point, I'm 18 years in my journey and you think I have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out, but I learn new shit every fucking day, and that's the thing. You have to be willing to go out. Dude, when I was playing football, I can remember this specific deal. So one time we were doing this drill and we had to run like 30 yards and we had to like break one. There was two dudes. One was holding a pad and the other dude was holding a pad. And you had to run as fast as you could and try to break through the fucking pads. And like, no matter how fucking hard I ran at the pads, I got fucking knocked on my ass every fucking time. And you know what? What would happen is you would watch other guys. And other guys, when they got like 5 yards out from the pad, they would slow down and then try to like weasel their way through the pad. Not me. I still ran as hard as I could into the fucking pad every fucking time because I thought that one of those times I was going to knock those motherfuckers down. And that's what entrepreneurship's about. Entrepreneurship is about running as hard as you fucking can every fucking time and getting the fuck back up and trying again. That's it. And like, dude, people think that this little obstacle or that little obstacle or dude, I get knocked on my ass every fucking day. At least once every day. Whether it be from, our retail company, our first form or something, that I'm working on. There's things that don't go my way every single day, and that's life. That's part of the deal. That's what you're signing up for. Entrepreneurship is the goriest, bloodiest, messiest profession that you could ever fucking be in mentally. You know what I mean? And it's not for everybody.
Yep.
But if you're not going to be willing to get up when little bitty shit happens, you're sure as fuck not going to be able to get up when you get a $2 million fucking tax bill like I did, like we talked about on your show, and you don't have the money to fucking pay it.
Well, so like I said, if that's where somebody's at, they're not being honest with themselves.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how we can serve the people who aren't asking those questions, who are I'm fucking doing it, right?
Yeah.
What is the biggest challenges that you hear back from your audience on guys and gals that are going for it?
Actually, I think this is a great question for you to answer, because what I get a lot, and it's something I don't know a lot about, is that a lot of these kids are trying to work with info products, and they're learning how to develop an info product like you did with your book, and sell that, where to sell it, how to develop it, and what are the options for them, how to market it. And you're much more qualified. That's what you do. So I think that I get literally questions about that all the time, and I know very little about it.
Sure. Yeah. So I think step one in this process, again, is identifying what is your biggest challenge or problem in life or your passion. Because this is something that you're going to be talking about, writing about, or, dealing with for years to come. So it has to be something that you're unbelievably into, whether it's your job or you're not, or not.
Right.
So that's step number one. And the other option for that is from a transformation perspective, where are you most dissatisfied in your life? So for me, the last business I started was in the financial education space because I had built, a multiple 8-figure business in my 20s, and I turned 30 and I had absolutely nothing to show for it except a house, a boat, and some really badass cars and a lot of great memories. As any guy in his 20s who's making millions of dollars and single would have.
Yeah.
And then you hit 30 and you're like, oh, holy shit, I'm kind of getting old now and it's time to grow up a little bit. And fact of the matter is that my parents are unbelievably hardworking, amazing individuals, but middle class, upper middle class, and their financial education was having an advisor in mutual funds. Right. So not necessarily the best teachers when it came to money. This was around 2008. So the world had just blown up financially. And when I went to the bookstore to start to dive into this topic, every book that I found was now irrelevant. Buy your single family home and your diversified portfolio. And like all of that shit had just blown up on every.
Away.
Right. So I'm like, okay, I know what not to do. I just saw half the world lose, 40% of their portfolios, but I didn't have an answer yet. So for me, that was my biggest passion at the time. It was figuring out this problem in my life where I was completely weak and I had no expertise or knowledge or experience at all. So that became my business. And so whatever your challenges in life, maybe it's personal fitness, maybe it's parenting, communication. I mean, pick a topic. If that's something you really want to change in your world, turn that into your business.
Yeah, become the expert.
That's it.
Right.
And, for me, I wasn't intending to become an expert. I just wanted to learn enough to take ownership of that part of my life so that I could make educated decisions. And so, the next question is, well, Mike, if you don't know anything, how can I possibly start a business around this if I'm, ignorant on the subject matter? Great, become a host. And that's essentially what I did. Is like, look, I'm not the expert in this world. I'm just here to learn about it. And if you want to follow in my journey, I'm going to interview people every week and we're going to learn about different types of investing and real estate and gold and things like that. And let's figure this out together. And that turned into a business that did $10 million in revenue in the first 12 months. We did $3.2 million in the first 7 days. And the entire premise was me saying, I'm an idiot when it comes to this topic, but I'm going to figure it out. And if this is an area of your life that you want to improve on as well, then let's go do that together. So you don't have to be an expert. You just have to have a passion for the subject and you have to see it as a problem you want to solve for yourself and for others.
And that was, sorry, I'm a little slow in the uptake. That was specifically what business?
It was called the Elevation Group.
The Elevation
and
Group.
It's no longer it's no longer in business. But I sold my interest in that a few years ago. But as we talked about earlier today, that was my most successful business. In the first year or two, and the second year turned into my biggest challenge in life when one of the guys I ended up interviewing turned out to be a con man. And ended up blowing up the business and cost me everything that I ever made. And it was a huge learning lesson. But yeah, that's a whole nother subject matter.
It's part of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
You're going to get punched in the mouth hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're going to question, like, what the fuck am I even doing? And the true entrepreneur is going to get up and say, I can't do anything else. This is just what I am.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
there is no other option.
So when you say you did 3.2 million in the first 7 days, how did you get that much momentum behind it so quickly?
I can think of less than 5 or 6 individuals who've been producing products in the info space or the education space as long as I have for, let's say, 10 years.
Right.
They come and go. And so what's the difference between us and everybody else? And the first and most important piece of this entire process is just like first form, it's to produce a quality product.
Right.
And second, it's to always put your relationship with your customers and your audience first, because that's what this entire business is based upon. It's based upon trust.
Right.
Someone's only going to buy a course or a book from me if they know, like, and trust me. And if I betray that trust and I put money first, or if I put out a shitty product or whatever it may be, that's good. Done, right?
Instantly.
Right. So to answer your question, how did we acquire 8,600 customers and $3 million in revenue in a week? I'd say 70% of that came from my audience who'd followed me from the previous company.
Right.
And it was basically like, Mike, we love your stuff. We've, bought it in the past. If you think this is great, we're in.
Right.
And so there was no sales pitch required, basically, for the most of that.
Yeah, that's the value of giving and contributing and providing real value and never asking for anything in return.
The long game.
Right.
It's the long game. And it's just doing what you said you're going to do and never, ever selling out your audience for money, right?
I love it.
Well, the alternative is to screw people over, make a little bit of money, and then you ruin your reputation, and then you're toast.
And then you're done. Then you're selling fucking snow cones.
Right.
On the side of the fucking road.
Mike, very practical question. We get this question a lot from people that email us all the time. And Andy, would love to hear what you have to say on this. In those early, moments when you're starting to really kill it and you're making a lot of money, okay? We get this question all the time.
What was the first thing you bought?
Well, we do that again.
We're going to go down a car rabbit hole.
Yeah, I know we are.
No, but
it's going to be at a car show.
the question is there a guideline for how much you reinvest in your company? Like how much money you enjoy and how much you reinvest back into the company?
So that's an interesting question when it comes to the digital product space, because our cost of goods sold is zero. An ebook to sell one copy is the same cost of goods sold as 1 million copies, right? So the infrastructure that you can run a digital info business on is literally $300 or $400 a month. It's your shopping cart and maybe a little tech guy help, and that's about it. So from an investment standpoint, there's not a lot of places to put it unless you start to have a really big vision for your team, of which there have only been a couple of people who've done that. Robert Kiyosaki has done it. Tony Robbins has done it, and then Dean Graziosi has done it. So these are guys in the info space who've put money into staff, built a company, and who now do, I'll do $100 to $200 million plus a year in revenue. Right. But
and that staff is, I'm assuming, like production staff primarily?
All your typical
fulfillment,
stuff.
service.
Marketing and tech and all of that. But it's very easy not to in this space, because this is literally a business you can run by yourself from a laptop anywhere in the world. And there's value to that lifestyle. Like, let's be honest, if you're making $100,000 a month in profit, you can go out and buy anything you want, do anything you want. What's your incentive to go out and build a team and take on all of those, headaches and responsibility? And so,
dude, no shit. There's a lot of truth to that. Like, more is not always better.
No, well, so here's the interesting part, right? So that business, we did build it. We built an amazing office in downtown Austin. We hired 12 people, and we did more revenue than I've ever done in my entire life. And my take home, what I netted that year, was exactly the same as the year before when I was by myself at my house.
Bro, you're preaching to the choir. Trust me. Like, my business, I made more money in 2012 and 13 than I make now, because I reinvest so much more, because I'm building a platform to get to a B. I'm not trying to be in the M's. I'm trying to be in the B's. And so that platform, and I have to explain this to our guys here a lot, costs a lot of fucking money. You know what I mean? And even though we're doing really well, I have to, they don't understand that, like, I'm making a big fucking personal sacrifice by investing in what we're doing here, because I believe in it, Well,
and there's a second side to it. You're building a sellable asset.
Right.
So here's the other part of the info space that's a little bit tricky. There's the advantages and disadvantages. One of the disadvantages is that you can't sell the business. It's you. Tony Robbins can't sell Tony Robbins' business, and neither can Robert Kiyosaki.
And not only that, he's got to fucking work his balls off.
Yeah, it's a treadmill you can't get off of. And so to the incentive to reinvest in the business, if you can't sell it at the end of the day, it's kind of like, where here in what you guys are building, you're building a sellable asset. So it makes sense. There's an incentive for you to do that.
But I would guess
it's I think the answer to that question about how much should you expect is it depends. It depends
on what you want. Yeah.
It depends on your goals.
Yeah.
I could very easily not reinvest money back in my company and make a lot fucking more money and stay exactly where we are, and a lot more money than I make personally. You know what I mean? And I make a lot of money. Right. So, you have to find other reasons why you're investing once you get to a certain level. Like, I'm not just doing this because of me, because if I was doing it for me, I would fucking stop growing and stay right where we are and make fucking 4 times as much money and be balling on a G650 for real. But and that is my goal.
Yeah.
But like, dude, I have guys who have worked here for 10 fucking years with me. Outside my business partner who's been here the whole time, you know, I have guys who have moved here from other states who have given me years and years and years and years of fucking loyalty and great, you know, service and learn and built careers. And like, dude, I owe it to them to get this company to a point where they can enjoy some of the fruits of that as well. And that's how I look at it. So,
Sure.
So I have, you know, I'm willing to, and I'm not trying to, because I do well, I'm not trying to like pity party myself, but I'm willing to make a lot of, I think a lot of people in my position would say, fuck that and take the money. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it just depends on what you want.
Right,
That's
exactly.
it. Yeah.
And I enjoy coming here. I enjoy making fun of Tyler's fucking shorts. You know what I'm saying? Like, I enjoy busting Dave's balls and like making fun of my brother for showing up at noon. Like, that makes my life better. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I mean, you've been here for
Absolutely.
half a day, and you understand there's a lot of sarcasm that gets thrown around here. Like,
No,
how
it's-
fucking
yeah, it's-
how fucking bored would I be without that?
It's awesome when your business is in a place of stability,
Yeah.
to where you're not stressed out worrying about how you're going to pay payroll,
Yeah.
and you can have fun with it.
Yeah.
Like, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mike, you know, this is information products on a very large scale of your livelihood. So I have to ask you a really straightforward question. There's a lot of people out there making products, right? So my question is there an end point to this? Are we in a is this a limited, like the next 5-6 years, you know, information products are going to be hot and then boom, it's gone. Nobody's going to be.
It's an interesting question that I actually asked myself this last year in a pretty hard way, because one of the goals for Selfmade is to turn this into a substantial e-learning platform that's not the Mike Show, and to build it into a sellable asset at some point where I'm just maybe a tiny little thumbnail on the About Us page.
Right.
And you look at all of the other sites out there, like Lynda, like Skillshare, like Creative Live, like YouTube, frankly, and information's becoming a commodity, right? So what I'm selling at the end of the day, what I've realized is not information. I'm selling leadership. I'm selling my personality, my relationship, and I'm selling leadership when it comes to my audience. That's what you guys are doing here. And so we might all be talking about the same things on 10 different podcasts and shows or whatever it may be. And y'all have your audience, I have my audience. And at the end of the day, people are listening because they like listening to you, right? So, and then from an information standpoint, what's the value in that in the future? Well, for me, the goal of the site and what we produce and the lessons is to deliver and empower people to obtain a new skill set. So the biggest transition point in my life was when I stopped looking for success to come from something outside of myself, such as an opportunity, a company, or a product, or a marketing gimmick, which I chased for 5 years unsuccessfully. And it's when I realized I needed to become a person who was capable of getting the result that I wanted. And for 5 years, I was not that person. And so how do you change? How do you become a more valuable asset to the world so that you can get paid more, essentially? You obtain new skill sets that are rare, that have a lot of value, that have a lot of demand. For me, that skill set was copywriting and Google AdWords. And so obtaining that skill set was the huge inflection point in my life. And so ever since then, my mission has been dedicated to really sharing that message and to providing people with the knowledge and the skills they need to go out and execute something and not just talk about it, but produce a result, because that's the moment your life changes. So
That's great. I love that you talked about the importance of, you said people, you know, a lot of us are talking about the same thing. You said what they're listening to is they're listening to you, which goes to what we say all the time, which is your niche is you.
Yeah.
And the more you're yourself, the more you build
your
that,
biggest competitive advantage is your authentic self.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
no one else can be that. So
Right.
if you could develop that into a product, you know, which all like if you listen to personal branding 2 episodes ago, you should be, you're gonna have something no one else can fuck with, you know.
Right.
But here's the thing. Let me answer that question too, because here's where I think it's going. I think right now you have the early adopters that understand how to market shit on social media, and They're not necessarily the most qualified or edified experts in what they are teaching. And I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a separation from the bullshitters, from, you know, the guys who are selling info products on shit they never fucking did, like in entrepreneurship, versus guys who are selling info products on that have built real companies who have done real things. And I think you're going to see a separation, because right now you have a lot of guys that are just doing it for the fucking money.
Well, they've been here and always have been, and they come and go.
Yeah, and you're going to see, I think what you're going to see now, because like, dude, when you and I were growing up, we're real close to the same age. You know, you had fucking Tony Robbins, you had the Carlton Sheets, and you had these other guys. And, you know, we didn't know if those guys, I mean, the only thing we knew is what we saw on fucking TV.
Right.
But now you get to know about people. Like, you can Google them, you can see what they really are, what their real and so there's, you know, while Tony Robbins has made a successful career out of being a motivator, and I believe Tony Robbins provides tremendous amounts of value. Like, I would not be who I am without listening to his shit. And that's the truth. But he's not, you know, back in the day, there was no way to qualify him as an expert when he first started. He's just a dude spitting some motivational shit that you got value from. But now people are looking beyond, or going to start looking beyond what that is, to find out what people's qualifications are. And I think when that starts to happen, you're going to see a shift from, you know, a bunch of dudes I could name right now to a bunch of dudes who have actually done real shit.
Right.
It's just longevity.
Right.
The ones who are being authentic and real will be here 10 years from now, and the others won't.
Right. That's true. Right. You know, and I think there are always going to be info products and courses and all this shit, but it's like Mike just said, there's going to be a separation. Mm-hmm. So, like, dude, Gary Vaynerchuk comes out with an info course, everybody's fucking buying it.
Right.
You know what I mean? The dude's built real companies.
Right.
You know, so, and, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he did that.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. He talks about why he hasn't, right? Have you heard him discuss why he hasn't monetized his content?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. You know, he's making more by building his audience to get exposure for VaynerMedia and all of his other stuff. So, hey, awesome.
Well, that is why you don't see real entrepreneurs doing it, because they're making real money doing real shit.
Right.
You know, like, what's your time worth?
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right,
like,
absolutely.
I only have so many hours in a day. You only have so many hours in a day. But, you know, the more I examine that space, and I've talked about this a couple of times now on the podcast, the more I'm starting to feel an obligation to do something in that space, because I feel like that there's a lot of misinformation or theory as opposed to real shit that people need to know about running a business.
Sure.
And, you know, it makes me, like, I've always been very vocal about not doing those things, but it makes me, like, I almost feel obligated at this point because I'm seeing so much bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get it.
Like, I don't know. It's like my internal struggle lately. Like, I've been like, I don't know, should I or shouldn't I, or should I or shouldn't I?
I mean, the best motivation that someone like yourself would have for putting the time into developing something like that is the ripple that you get to create.
Right.
So I still, to this day, have people come up to me at events and stuff for like, hey, I read your book 10 years ago. It
changed my life. Right.
Absolutely.
Dude, that's the thing. Like we were talking about on your show earlier, my biggest thing, the best part about what we do here with the MFCEO project is people who comment or write me an email or message and say, look, I started putting these principles in play. It's changed my fucking life. You know, it saved my life. You know, and I get comments like that, dude. And it's real shit. And like, you know, I'm only giving people like the tip of, you know, just a tip, you know.
Love that game.
Yeah. Everybody loves that game. So
it's funny how all of our minds went to there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. It's cool though. But yeah, man, it's interesting to see. It's interesting how easy it is to get something going right now. You know,
it's never been easier, which is why I don't have a lot of patience for those questions.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I just don't have a lot of patience for it.
That's because you had to do it in the days when it wasn't that easy,
right? Before,
bro, I was going door to door
before YouTube or any of this stuff, right?
Fucking knocking on doors and bugging the shit out of people,
right?
And I hate that shit. I'm not that kind of person,
right?
You know. But yeah, man, entrepreneurship has never, ever, ever been more accessible, and I think that learning the tools and learning how social works and learning how to impact people is such an important part of what needs to happen. But it's something that so many people look past because they're worried about like trying to make $1 today, right?
Sure.
You can't impact people in one fucking day. I mean, you can on that chance that you have that one extra special piece of content that makes people really think. But the reality is that, dude, you gotta talk to people and conversate with people and make people part of what it is you're doing over time. That's going to build the sort of following that will sell a product $3.2 million in 8 days or whatever. That's fucking insane. You know what I mean? I don't know. I love hearing that.
I mean, it's built on what we discussed earlier, and I know you talk about on the show all the time, is that you have to be willing to give without want before you can get.
Yeah.
And
genuinely.
Yes, that's the key.
Like a genuine. Yeah. I'm genuinely doing this because I want to improve you. It's not. I'm trying to manipulate it.
Well, and it's not, hey, I posted, 10 free videos on YouTube and I haven't made any money.
Right.
No, you missed the whole point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You see people say that shit too.
Right.
They're like, oh, I put out all this content for free and I don't get anything out of it. It's like, look, man, so buy my shit.
Right.
Like you're doing it wrong, dude.
Right.
Like people will reciprocate if you give. Like you don't have to ask. Like, dude, we're selling the shit out of the children's books, and I haven't asked anybody to buy it. I just presented what it is and put the link up. You know what I mean?
Like literally, I think you've posted 4 times.
Yeah.
So you had one Facebook
I've
Live
posted,
to announce it.
But I mean, it's cool because like I know who's buying it. It's people listening right now, and the reason they're buying it is because they appreciate what we're doing. And by the way, guys, thank you so much for all that because it's been really it gives you faith in humanity. Like people still, like when you do things for people, they still feel like they're going to do something back for you. It's amazing. Like it makes you feel good about, especially our audience, because I mean, clearly they're the most intelligent people on earth if they're listening to our podcast.
Clearly. But back to your previous point, they say, oh, I put up 7 videos and I took all this time to, provide value and nobody bought it. But if you really...
Why don't you put up like 700 videos?
Well, not only that.
And I say shit.
People have a completely whacked view of how long this takes, right? So they do it for like 3 weeks and they're like, well, I was really selfless for 3 weeks. Instead of a prolonged... I mean, we've been doing this podcast for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is not 3 weeks.
No, and I love it.
Yeah.
I look forward to every episode.
I do too,
because I love to hear myself talk.
I know you do, but the point is that people they don't have a really realistic understanding of how the time investment.
Yeah, agreed. And when I was thinking about starting the Self-Made Man podcast, and I called up all of our mutual friend Lewis Howes, and I listened to his show all the time, and I was like, Lewis, what are the pointers, man? Give me the lowdown on building a really successful podcast. And he said, unless you're going to commit to doing at least 1 episode a week for 2 or 3 years, don't even start.
Yeah.
And
you know what I like about him too, dude, is that he's very helpful. Like he's not one of those guys that tries to keep all his secrets.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you call him up, you say, hey, dude, what's the deal with this? And he'll tell you the truth.
Well, I think anyone who's actually successful, I haven't found anyone who's not actually successful that holds stuff close to the vest, because we all know what battles we've gone through, and the fact that we're all still here and alive, like we've gone to war together.
Yeah. It's
like, of course I'm going to fucking help you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He's been overly cool about that with me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think he's a good dude.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
But that's it. It's putting it in perspective, the amount of time and effort and work that you need to put in to create that foundation. That was really powerful to me. Like, wow, 2 to 3 years, really? And that's how long it took him for his show to gain momentum, before anybody had really heard about him. And I've seen that to be the case with ours. We're 1.5 years in now, and just now in the last 6 months starting to see an upward, curve. And it's 100+ episodes, into the project. So
yeah, and that's discouraging when you're putting all your heart and soul into something, and you're getting fucking 100 people listening or 20 people listening. And people see that and they think that that's just them. Like, oh, that's just me. Nobody cares about. No, man, nobody cares about anybody in the beginning. Like you've got to build that momentum. It takes time. Just because you got 5 fucking likes on your Facebook post and 4 of them was your fucking family, that's how everybody starts.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Eventually you get to a point where your family stops liking your shit because you're getting so many from other people.
I mean, I think it took us 3, maybe 4 weeks before we hit 1 million.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but that's,
I mean, it
dude,
was
that's
crazy.
us, though.
Yeah,
That's
I
us.
know.
That's different.
I know. But Mike, you guys, I think we're talking about this a little bit when I just stepped out. But
Oh, you stepped out? Nobody even noticed.
I did. Nobody noticed. We've talked about this before, that there's a journey that every entrepreneur who really makes it big kind of goes through. They start out being motivated by money, and then over time they realize that that's just not going to cut it, as an enduring motivation, right?
That's so funny you brought that up.
Yeah.
We talked about this this morning.
So
yeah.
well, see, that's why you pay me the big bucks,
Yeah.
is that I anticipate what you're going to want to talk about. But I mean, where are you at right now with your ultimate drive and motivation? And to be real frank, just be more specific than just the betterment of humanity. Tell me what, like,
I'll tell you what Andy and I talked about in person earlier.
It's cool you brought this up.
I'll be super Andy, I know you're the same way, but I don't think there's any point in trying to hide, your losses from people, because I think those are where everybody gets the most education.
No question.
And so we were talking about this earlier. I'm 39. I'll be 40 in September, and I'm like, man, this has been a tough 2 years for me, because I found myself in a situation at 39 where I am not where I anticipated being, considering my previous levels of success. So 4 years ago, when we ran into this dude who blew everything up, that cost me everything: my house, marriage, my business partner. We were in Aitutaki, New Zealand. He's getting married in this beautiful destination wedding. I'm his best man. And we're taking our best man entourage photos, right, on the island an hour before the ceremony, and his phone rings, and he answers it, and it's his doctor, who he'd been to a week before, and is like, hey, I just needed to let you know that we got your blood results back and you have leukemia. And this is an hour before he's getting married.
Wow.
Right? Not the news you want to get. And we're both of the belief that was caused, from the stress, from the business crap that we were going through. So, I had achieved all of my goals, had everything I want, and here I've lost it, and I'm in my late 20s, and I'm essentially having to start over. So, now, because I have that foundation and I have that audience and I've built relationships with these people for 10 years, it's unbelievably easy for me to start a new business and to see success again, which I have, and I've rebuilt my little mini empire, if you will. But, the values and what's important has definitely changed. Mm-hmm. After going through something that challenging and difficult, I came out of it with an appreciation for everything in life that I had. As long as nobody was bleeding that I love, like bleeding out in front of me and dying, everything's good. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter they don't have a house anymore. Doesn't matter they don't have this other stuff. Like, as long as the people I love are not in trouble, life is fucking fine. So that was a really huge shift for me, where it stopped being about chasing, the $100 million mark, the $500 million mark, and, all of the material accomplishment sides of life. And it really put things in perspective. So that was a really big reset for me. And now at 39, there is a side towards like, okay, I need to get my shit back together. I'm going to be 40. I'm officially going to be an adult. When you hit 40, there's no more excuses, right? Yeah. The hair is starting to fade and thin, and it's like, shit, I have to really build back everything again. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to go through that a second time. I can't afford to do that, right? Mm-hmm. So right now, the priorities are build something, which has always been the case, that's going to provide the biggest benefit to my fellow humans that I can. That's going to create a legacy for me in that regard of building people up and improving people's lives. And then to take a much more conservative approach when it comes to finances and money and asset protection and security and all of those lessons learned that I took away from that event. And then from a giving standpoint, a charity standpoint, I'm one of the biggest contributors to Charity Water and Scott Harrison, who's become a really good personal friend of mine. And so always having that as a built-in part of the business where we give a percentage of profits and revenue every month to that specific group has become a huge priority as well. And when I had the least amount of money in my life in the last 2 years is when I signed on to my biggest obligation from a charity perspective. It was a $60,000 a year donation, which I should not be making from a financially sound, approach.
Yeah.
But it was just from an abundance mentality and where I wanted to be. And again, coming through that an event, if the money that I'm making can have an impact on 10,000 plus people a day, or not a day, a year, and give them clean water and like change their lives, then fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So it's just been a huge lesson learned and a huge reset for me. But at the same time, I'm not neglecting myself either. And what I am truly passionate about in life is racing cars.
Yeah.
And that's been my biggest passion for many, many years now. And so I still do that. And, I bought the Ferrari that I've had my eye on. And for me, that's about my daily pleasure. Andy and I were talking about earlier, the fact that until you've owned a supercar, you don't really get it. And it's not about showing off. It's not about being seen. It's about the fact that you can make a 10-minute run to a grocery store and scare the shit out of yourself. That, just gives you this adrenaline rush, and it's just awesome.
It's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it really is,
dude. It's so awesome to hear that about the giving the 60,000 when it's not making sense. Because I am a huge believer that giving is relative, right? Like, a dude who's got $1 billion and he gives a fucking $50,000 donation, it's like me giving $5. Right. So I am a firm believer that, and I don't, like in the universe or God or whatever you want to say, that dude, when you give and it means something to you, like it's a sacrifice for you to do that, that's when like you get it back tenfold.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you shouldn't do it to get it back. But dude, I've given so much money away, and like it comes back tenfold in every way. And I don't have an expectation of that. If it doesn't, it's fine, but it always has. And that's just a fact.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, dude, it takes a special kind of human to do that when it's not just an easy thing to do. Like, oh, here's $10 or here's $50.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know. That's fucking cool.
Absolutely.
It's just an abundance mentality,
dude. It is.
It's a complete belief in myself and the way the world works. And I have a 10-year history of a shit ton of success in what I do. So it's not a risk for me in that regard.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. But it's just cool to know that, like, because that's a testament to your belief in that, like a real testament. What
was that? If we want to give a shout out for that charity that you support?
charitywater.org.
Charitywater.org.
They're unbelievable. They're the most high-tech, cutting-edge charity organization in the world. They're they're really the pioneer where they give 100% of every donation. It's deployed to the field in a verifiable, literally satellite photo way. Wow. Even your merchant fee from the credit card, the 3% they reimburse, and that goes into the field.
Oh, wow.
And so unlike Red Cross or all this other bullshit stuff that gets eaten away by administration, and you never know what happens to your money, you get photos from the well that your money went to, and of the villagers, and you can look it up on Google Maps, and
that's fucking cool.
They're amazing. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's super cool.
Man,
so a real charity.
No shit, man.
Gary Vee's actually part of the group as well, and a bunch of Silicon Valley guys are.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's called it's called The Well. If you're having a degree of success in your life and you wanna participate, call them up and email them and ask them how to join The Well, and it's a pretty awesome group they've
assembled. So then, have you
cool.
flown over there with them?
I have. I attended their grand opening for their New York office a year ago, and it literally is run like a Silicon Valley startup.
Yeah,
it's a bunch of ex-Googlers, Apple employees, Facebook people who gave up unbelievably lucrative salaries to come in and work for a fraction of what they were making because they just believe in the mission.
Right.
So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So maybe you guys talked about this already. Like I said, I stepped out, no one noticed. But what's on the agenda for the future? I mean, like in terms of you've gone through a couple things, but what's the grand plan? You're laying on your bed right before you die, and your life is flashing before you. And I mean, what's the what's the hope? What are the scenes that are going to pass
Man,
through
that's
your
a
face?
that's a tough question I wrestle with, because I have expectations for myself and the kind of personal goals that I have financially, and you know, what I want to provide my family with from a legacy standpoint. And there's a lot of work to be had in that regard right now. Yet at the same time, I think as you get older, the less important that side of your life becomes, you know, again, on the material side. So I've been dealing with the juxtaposition there. But at the same time, you know, we've talked about this again today and on Andy's show. If you forget about the money, then you'll actually exceed all of your expectations.
Yeah, there's a
financially.
paradox there.
Right.
It is.
Right.
And so I'm having to remind myself is forget about your financial goals, man. Like, build this platform and focus on how many emails and letters you get from people thanking you that you've had a positive impact on their life. And if you just focus on that number, the rest takes care of itself.
There's always going to be a way to make the money come.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this podcast, we straddle business and success. We're not really a business podcast. We're not really success. We're kind of both, right?
Right.
So we've talked a lot about business, which, you know, all these are overlapping, but I know our listeners are hugely committed to self-development. So why don't you share some of your personal habits?
I'm the wrong guy to ask for that, brother. It's interesting. I don't know if you're the same way, Andy, or not, but I am so effing stubborn when it comes to not being told what to do that I don't even let myself tell myself what to do. And the fact that I've tried all of my life to have these daily morning habits, rituals,
Right.
disciplines, etc., routines, and I'll have it for a day and that's it. Because the next morning I might have had a lot of fun with some friends the night before. I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. and go work out. I just want to sleep in. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do. So
Right.
that's never worked out well for me. But at the same time,
But again, that's a whole other thing of what we talked about. It's about finding what works for you.
Right.
And sometimes that works.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's, you know, I became an entrepreneur because I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it.
Right.
And with that being in mind, there's one habit that I've taken with me since the beginning of my career, which is unbelievably simple, but it works for me, which is the daily 3 to 5 list of the tasks that I need to get done.
There you go.
Putting that in Evernote every
I feel
day.
like we've heard that. Something
Yeah,
like that
kind of,
before.
sort of. It
Yeah.
kind of works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the analogy that I use for that is bricks. So if you want to build a mansion, it's going to take you 5 or 6 years to build it. And if you lay 3 to 5 bricks a day, you'll eventually end up with a mansion. But that's it. You've got to lay your bricks every day and get it done. And if you take a long enough approach to what you're working on, you will end up with the result that you want. And that's it. That's my one daily discipline that I do.
That's great. That's great.
Exactly the same as mine. And if you want to hear that in detail, you can go listen to Win the Day podcast, which is episode
Oh gosh, 117. I think
117.
Yeah.
But it's called Win the Day. So
Yeah.
we go into that. The whole episode is dedicated to what he just said.
Mike, how do people connect with you on social media? What are your handles?
You know, MikeDillard.com is the central hub where I have links to everything. I'm not super active on social. You know, I have Facebook and Instagram, but I might post to Instagram once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But the podcast goes up every week, and you know, we have an email list with all of the new stuff that we have coming out. But you know, I wish I was better. I wish I was more of an extrovert on the social media side. But that's it. But yeah, MikeDillard.com is a great place to start, and that's it.
So let's close it out with this question, because you asked me this on your show, and I want to ask you the same thing. If you could give one piece of advice to somebody listening right now who is a beginning entrepreneur, what would it be?
Master a skill set. That's the key to everything. If you master a skill set, it empowers you to take action and to get a result and to create momentum in your life. And it turns you into a source of value for other individuals. So figure out how your brain is wired. If you're an analytical, numbers-based person, go out and master a skill set when it comes to Facebook advertising. If someone did that over the next 3 to 6 months, they could start a little Facebook agency and run other people's, you know, paid ad clients and make literally $500,000 to $1 million a year just by themselves running that agency from home.
Right.
If you're on the creative side, such as myself, learn copywriting. You know, that and learning how to sell through the written word, whether that is through webinars or through videos or through website copy or through emails, is literally the golden ticket where you can go out and either sell your own products or services or others. And when I say master a skill set, I really mean master it. Don't watch 5 videos on YouTube and think that you've got this whole thing figured out. It's going to take you 2 to 3 years to do that. The best way that you can get experience is to go offer to do it, for others, like Andy or like myself for free or at a discount or whatever it may be. Get real world experience, get paid to do it as an employee if you need to, and go unbelievably deep to where you could literally write the next book on the subject matter and have it be, the biggest source of authority in that industry. And if you find yourself in that position, you've already made it. Like, you can just really write your own ticket.
Yeah, amen. I agree. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This
really,
is awesome.
really cool. I'm super, super. This is one of my favorite episodes we've done. Just
Yeah, it's a good one.
dude, I just love talking to you, man. So
Awesome,
I'm so
man.
glad to have you on the
Thank
show.
you. Well, I can't wait to have you down to Austin for F1 this year.
Yeah. Me
And
too.
get some time around the track.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
We do need to take a little time to share some important links. The MFCEO.com/badass books. It's Andy's reading list, guys. If you haven't checked it out, go ahead and check that out. We've made that available, and it's not just a reading list. He shared some salient thoughts on each resource, and then Andy's at Andy Frisella. Tyler's at MAI_TYLER, my Tyler. And I'm at VAUGHNKOHLER. So connect with us because Andy's got a lot of videos on Instagram. It's still amazing how many people don't know that.
Yeah.
Listeners to the podcast that don't know that there are awesome videos that you post on Instagram and YouTube. So,
Yeah.
and the MFCEO.com.
little mini podcast
Yeah.
almost on a daily basis there.
Yeah.
So, guys, also, look, all I ask for this, if you found value in the podcast, please share with a like-minded friend. Let them know about us. That's how we grow. We don't advertise the podcast. We don't sell things on the podcast. If you're interested, if you have a friend who's interested in what we're talking about and you think they'd benefit, just share us up. We really appreciate it. So, guys, we will talk to you next time.